Very good afternoon to everyone watching us live from across the globe. So, as we all know that we are gathered here for a webinar on childhood cancers, reality checks, organized by International Association of Oncology in association with BioLix. We have with us our moderator for the afternoon, Dr. Sonali Mahapatra ma'am, Associate Professor, Department of Medical Oncology, AIIMS Bhubaneswar. And we have with us our speaker for the afternoon, Dr. Saroj Prasad Panda sir, Professor, Pediatric Oncology, IMS and some hospitals, Bhubaneswar. We welcome you both, sir and ma'am. So without much delay, I would like to hand it over to sir to start his presentation. Over to you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, all. So today's webinar is all about childhood cancers reality checks, and I'm the moderator. And I thank Dr. Bansam Biswas, who is the medical oncologist and executive director, Sports Hospital, for giving me this opportunity. So without much delaying the time, we'll start the um, session. So today's speaker is Dr. Saroj. Saroj, please.
Thank you. Very good afternoon to you all. Thank you, Dr. Sonali ma'am. And a special thanks to Dr. Biswas sir. He is behind the screen. It's my pleasure to be here in front of two stalwarts in this field. Dr. Sonali, who started the pediatric oncology program in my state few years back, and Dr. Ghanshyam Biswas, who started the medical oncology program in the state long back. So it's my pleasure. Special thanks to both of you and BioLix for the invitation. So, Mr. Ashish, can we start our presentation? Thanks, sir. So, in the next 20 to 30 minutes, we'll go through the basics of childhood cancers and what are the realities. And this is in a special time when we are celebrating the Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Every year in the month of September, we do celebrate the childhood cancer awareness. The primary goal is to give thanks to those people who are involved in the treatment of the childhood cancer, the doctors, the staff nurses, the paramedical staffs, the NGOs, the fundraisers, and many more people. The second aim is to create an awareness among the general public and the general physicians about the diagnosis and the treatment of the childhood cancers. I'll start with the problems and we'll go through the solution one by one. Cancer is basically a global problem. Almost 300,000 new cases of childhood cancer are detected every year. Childhood cancer, what I mean, is a diagnosis of cancer in the age group of 1 year to 14 years. This is relatively arbitrary. Some centers take a cutoff of 18 years or some take a different cutoff. Usual definition is 0 to 14 years, a diagnosis of childhood cancer. The odds ratio, that means if someone is a child, he has a chance of developing a cancer during next 17 to 18 years is 1 in 300. Similarly, suppose you search a population of 1 lakh over a period of 1 year, the number of diagnoses will be roughly around 17 to 18. All over the world, 300,000, 3 lakh children are diagnosed. In India, the figure is something around 50,000. In our hospital, I do work at some hospital, Bhubaneswar. The figure is something around 150 new cases every year. And Dr. Sonali must be seeing much more than that. The problem here is that 80% of these diagnoses are from the low middle income countries, whereas only 20% are from the developing world. The outcome from the developed world is relatively good. It's around 80% or even better. Whereas in the low middle income countries, the majority of the people will die. This varies from 20% to 50%, depending upon the country, because the problems are many. There is inadequate awareness among the general public. inadequate awareness among the physicians too, which all lead to a delay in the diagnosis. And the cases present very late. These are the figures, the actual patients who have come in such a stage. And when a diagnosis is made, then there are problems too. There is inadequate money, inadequate resources in the form of manpower, material, and time. When the diagnosis is made late and we don't have enough resources, then the outcome is poor. But fortunately, over the period of 5 to 6 years, the outcome are getting better day by day. So this is improved over the last 4 to 5 years. A child is not a mini adult. There are differences in a childhood cancer and an adult cancer. The incidences we have already discussed. The incidence is something around 17 to 18 per 1 lakh population in case of children, whereas it's around 500 to 550 new cases per 1 lakh population every year in adults. So in children, this is basically a rare tumor. The most common tumor what we see in children is leukemia and the brain tumors, whereas in adults, this is breast, lung, and the prostate. If you see the histopathology, carcinoma is very common in adults. These are the tumors derived from the epithelial tissue. Whereas in children, the embryonal tumors, which are very common, and the carcinoma are really rare. Coming to the risk factors, like what we see, like cigarette smoking predisposes for lung cancer in adults. Alcoholics, they are prone for liver cancer, or there are many more acquired risk factors for adults. In children, we don't have much acquired risk factor. That is the reason the prevention program and the awareness programs doesn't help to reduce the incidence of childhood cancers. Fortunately, the sensitivity of chemotherapy in childhood cancer is very good. Children tolerated chemotherapy better. So the outcome is almost 70 to 80% if they are diagnosed in appropriate time and treated adequately. Whereas in adults, the outcomes are far inferior. Coming to the causes of the childhood cancer, 80 to 90% of the cases, we don't know what is the cause. There is no known environmental factor or any acquired factor, like what we say in adults, cigarette smoking, alcohol, asbestos, there are many more risk factors. There are only a few, almost 5% to 10%, where there is a genetic mutation or an inherited mutation. These are basically the genetic changes that comes from the father or mother to the child. This accounts for only 5 to 10%. Suppose I give an example of Down syndrome. There are babies of Down syndrome, child with Fanconi anemia, some syndromes like Lee-Fraumeni syndrome, Beckwith-Woodman syndrome, and there are few where the risk factor, they have got a higher chance of developing a childhood cancer. Similarly, in retinoblastoma, that's a tumor of the childhood where the eyes look white. That's a familial tumor. So if the father has got a retinoblastoma, there is high chance that the child will develop a retinoblastoma. If both the parents are having retinoblastoma, that's almost 50% chance that the child will develop a retinoblastoma. So these are only few cases that accounts for total of roughly 10 to 15% where there is a risk factor. Rest 90% we don't know what is the etiology. Is there any preventive measure? There are many preventive steps which help to reduce the incidence of cancer in adults. But in children, since there is no risk factor, these preventive measures won't help. Even the screening test doesn't help. By modifying the lifestyle, one can reduce the risk of adult cancer, but the childhood cancer incidence remains same. Coming to the various sites, cancer can occur anywhere in the body. The sites starts from the brain. The common childhood cancer what you see are the medulloblastoma, the gliomas, and ependymoma. These are the 3 common brain tumors. There are many more. In eye, one tumor is retinoblastoma that is typically seen in case of children. This is not seen in adults, very rarely. The other tumors are lymphoma, then leukemia, the bone tumors. The osteosarcoma and the Ewing sarcoma, these are the 2 common bone tumors seen in children. Then the other organs, it can be a liver, it can be a kidney, it can be a nervous system, it can be muscle. Everywhere the tumors can arise. How do we normally classify? We classify them into 2 broad categories: hematolymphoid and the solid tumors. Hematolymphoid means tumor that is related to blood, bone marrow, and the lymph nodes. So the 2 common categories among the hematolymphoid tumors are leukemia and the lymphoma. Leukemia is classified as acute and chronic. Acute means a short duration of symptom, and a chronic means longer duration of symptom. Again, this can be classified into lymphoid or myeloid, taking into account the origin of the tumor. The second category is the lymphoma. We do classify them as Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's. Hodgkin's is basically either a single lymph node with... Sorry, I'll just take 1 second. I am extremely sorry. So coming to the lymphomas, we do classify them as Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Hodgkin's lymphoma is basically a single lymph node, or there are multiple lymph nodes which are in contiguity. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is generalized lymphadenopathy, or there is non-contiguous lymph node involvement. In children, the 2 most common non-Hodgkin's lymphoma are Burkitt lymphoma and the lymphoblastic lymphoma. In Burkitt lymphoma, there is some unusual presentations like intestinal obstruction or a jaw mass. The other categories of hematolymphoid tumors are the histiocytic tumors, HLH, and the myelodysplastic syndromes. Coming to the solid tumors, the most common variety is the brain tumor. In the brain tumor, the 3 common types are medullogliomas and ependymoma. In the bone tumor, the 2 common tumors are Ewing sarcoma and the Ewing osteosarcomas. The third category are the abdominal tumors, which include the neuroblastoma, the Wilms tumor, hepatoblastoma, and the germ cell tumors. The last one is a mixed bag, which mainly includes the sarcomas that are classified as rhabdomyosarcoma and non-rhabdo soft tissue sarcoma. One rare tumor we have already discussed is a retinoblastoma. So these are the malignancy which are commonly encountered in children. The most common among them is leukemia. That accounts for almost 1/3 of the cases. Among these leukemia, majority are acute leukemias. 85% are acute lymphoblastic leukemias. Then it's acute myeloid leukemia. There are few, around 3 to 4% are chronic myeloid leukemia or juvenile myelomonocytic leukemia. So ALL is most common, then AML, then the chronic leukemias. The second category is the brain tumors, and third is the lymphoma. The other tumors each account for almost 5 to 6% of the cases, which are retinoblastoma, Wilms tumor, neuroblastoma, and the bone tumors. Let's see what are the symptoms and how do we suspect leukemia. So leukemia is a tumor of is a blood cancer. What do you mean? So there is features of marrow failure. Marrow failure means the hemoglobin, platelet, WBC will be low. When the hemoglobin is low, the most common symptom is paleness of the body or progressive pallor or decreased exercise tolerance. When WBC is low, neutrophils are low, they are prone for infection, they will have fever. When there is low platelet, these all lead to bleeding symptoms. Bleeding can be a gum bleed, can be a epistaxis, can be a GI bleed or anything. So these are what we call the features of bone marrow failure. When a child has got a features of bone marrow failure, The two common differential diagnoses are aplastic anemia and leukemia. So how do we differentiate? If there are features of organomegaly in the form of a hepatomegaly, splenomegaly, or lymphadenopathy, then we think of hematologic malignancy. When there is no features of organomegaly, one should think of aplastic anemia. So leukemia, one should suspect when there is features of marrow failure and associated with organomegalies. The brain tumors. The sign and symptoms of brain tumor depends upon what is the location of the tumor. It can be a cranial palsy, it can be a weakness, or it can be a change in the sensorium. In children, the posterior fossa tumors are very common, which are associated with features of raised intracranial pressure. So the features will be vomiting, headache, especially in the morning, gait disturbances, and a change in the vision, diplopia. These are the common symptoms. When these features are present, we call it there is features of raised intracranial pressure, and one should think of the possibility of the brain tumors. The third common tumor in children is lymphoma. The most common presentation of lymphoma is an enlarged lymph node. The lymph nodes can be anywhere. It can be in the neck, it can be in the axilla, it can be in the groin, and sometimes in the mediastinum or in the abdomen. So when there is a persistent enlarged lymph node, one should think of lymphomas. There can be some features of constitutional symptoms like fever, weight loss, or loss of appetite. Another rare tumor which is seen in children is the retinoblastoma. The most common manifestation is a white pupillary reflex. In a normal child, if you put a light that looks, the pupil looks red, but when it looks white, one should keep the possibility of retinoblastoma, and the child should be evaluated by a trained ophthalmologist. The other features of a retinoblastoma at the presentation can be a squint, means the eyes are deviated either inward or outward. It can be a nystagmus, which is an abnormal involuntary movement of the eyeball. It can be swollen or shrunken eye. To summarize, what are the symptoms that may indicate malignancy in children? The first and foremost is the unexplained paleness, fatigue, skin bleed, with or without hepatosplenomegaly. One should think of possibility of hematologic malignancy. Prolonged unexplained fever and bone pain can be a feature of lymphoma, leukemia, even in metastatic disease. A persistent enlarged lymph node, one should think of the possibility of lymphoma. When there is features of raised intracranial pressure in form of headache, vomiting, visual changes, gait disturbances, one should think of the possibility of brain tumors. A white pupillary reflex, the possibility of retinoblastoma should be thought of. Let's see one by one. Bone pain is very common symptom in children, but when should one feel that this is significant? When the bone pain occurs at the same place and is more at the night. The child requiring frequent painkillers, that bone pain is very significant. Similarly, anemia or pallor. Anemia which is rapidly progressive, requiring multiple transfusion, or is associated with bleeding, lymphadenopathy, or bone pain, that anemia needs evaluation. Sometimes this may not be malignant, but these patients need evaluation. Similarly, a lung in a soft tissue. A swelling which is growing steadily, or it is fixed and hard, then one should think of possibility of malignancy. This swelling needs evaluation. Headache, we have already discussed. A early morning headache associated with vomiting or other symptoms need evaluation. Being oncologists, we always think of malignancy, and the general physicians always think of benign condition. But one should keep the possibility of both in the differential diagnosis. While evaluating a child with fever, infection is definitely the most common cause, But one should not forget the malignant causes like leukemia and the lymphoma. Similarly, vomiting is very commonly seen in case of infection or a gastroesophageal reflux, but it can rarely be seen with brain tumors and abdominal mass. So that should be also in the differential diagnosis. Cough and respiratory symptoms are very common in respiratory infections, pneumonias, and reactive airway disease. But in children, one tumor is there that we call T lymphoblastic lymphoma. That's a variety of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that do very frequently present with mediastinal mass and respiratory distress. So this should be in the list of the differential diagnosis. Similarly, bone pain and muscle pain, headache, bone pain and muscle pain can be seen in many non-malignant conditions, but it can be present in leukemia and the neuroblastoma or a metastatic disease. Lymphadenopathy is very commonly seen in systemic infections or collagen vascular disease, but one should keep the possibility of the leukemia, lymphoma, and metastatic disease also. The Wilms tumor, the hematuria is not the most common symptom. Most of the patient will come with an abdominal mass, asymptomatic well child with abdominal mass or a renal mass. One should think of Wilms tumor. Hematuria can be a presenting symptom. 20%, 30% of the Wilms tumor will have hematuria. But the most common differential in such cases is urinary tract infection or glomerulonephritis. When there is a possibility of malignancy, when you suspect a cancer in a child, what has to be done next? The child should be thoroughly evaluated. A detailed clinical history and examination is essential. The next step is an appropriate screening test. Like suppose it's a child with leukemia, a basic investigation should include CBC. CBC means a complete blood count, a peripheral smear evaluation, and the electrolytes. So that should be done at the basic screening test. When there is a possibility of lymphoma or a solid tumor, we need imaging. The imaging can be an ultrasound, can be a CT scan, or can be a MRI. That depending upon the availability in the local setup. So basic screening tests should be done there. The next investigation, sometimes they need biopsy, they need immunohistochemistry or histopathological evaluation. That can be done in local setup or in appropriate referral centers. The treatment of a malignancy is suitably done in a tertiary care center. So the cases must be referred to the appropriate oncology center at the earliest. Where should these kids get treated? The initial screening we have already discussed can be done at a general physician or pediatrician level, but the final treatment needs sophisticated care. They need a dedicated team which will include a medical oncologist, surgical oncologist, and radiation oncologist. Along with that, the team must include, there are so many staffs like a social worker, we need volunteers, we need fundraisers. The role of nursing care is the most important. So the treatment of a childhood cancer cannot be done in setup where this facility are not there. What is the treatment? The treatment is a combination of surgery, radiotherapy, and chemotherapy. That depends upon what is the tumor, where is the site of the tumor, and what is the intent of treatment. Is it curative intent or a palliative intent? So let me take one by one. Leukemia, that's blood cancer. The treatment of leukemia is chemotherapy. They don't need any surgery. The treatment is over a period of 6 months in acute lymphoblastic leukemia, followed by a maintenance of 2 years. Some of these babies, where there is CNS involvement, the brain is involved, they need radiation therapy. Similarly, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or Hodgkin's lymphoma, the treatment is chemotherapy. Some of these patients, when there is persistent disease or a residual disease, they need radiation therapy. Most of the brain tumors need a combination treatment. If it is a brain tumor, liver tumor, kidney tumors, they need a combination of either of these three. Sometimes they need surgery chemo alone, sometimes they need surgery chemo radiation. So that depends upon where is the tumor and what is the sensitivity pattern of the tumor. Side effects of chemotherapy is sometimes a concern for the family, but that should be discussed with the treating team. When a treatment plan is done, that is being done by a multidisciplinary team, which include the whole team members, the medical, surgical, radiation oncologist, where they decide what would be the appropriate treatment for that child. So there is a balance between the effects and the side effects of chemotherapy. One should not discontinue treatment thinking of its side effects. Coming to the cost of the treatment, majority of the childhood cancers can be treated with a cost something around 50,000 to 3 to 4 lakhs. There are hardly few tumors where the cost of the treatment will be more than 5 lakhs. Majority can be treated with a cost of around 2 to 3 lakhs. The sources of money, this is very important in case of developing country where most of the patients do not have a health insurance. In developed world, majority are treated in a health insurance, whereas in the low middle income countries, most of the patients pay out of the pocket. But fortunately, over last 4 to 5 years, the government has come up. There are many NGOs who have come up to help those needy people for this financial assistance. The outcome of childhood cancers. So this is the trend over last 15 to 20 years from 1970 to 2005. Almost all the tumors, the outcome is getting better and better. We have reached to a tune of more than 90% cure rate in some of the tumors. So this is the cure rate. See, the overall cure rate is 80% if we diagnose the disease at appropriate time and receive appropriate treatment. We have achieved cure rate more than 80% in case of retinoblastoma, Hodgkin's lymphoma, Wilms tumor, and ALL and non-Hodgkin's. Majority of the childhood cancers belong to this category, where we have achieved cure rate 80, 90, or even more than that percent. There are few tumors, especially Ewing sarcoma, a metastatic neuroblastoma, osteosarcoma, the outcome are inferior. Most of these patients, when the tumor is localized means the tumor is in one place, metastatic where it has spread beyond the primary site, the outcome is inferior. There is a long way we need to go in those cases. To summarize, pediatric malignancies are highly curable. Appropriate screening investigation is to be done at the earliest. A complete histologic diagnosis and staging evaluation is mandatory. Early referral to a pediatric oncology center or medical oncology center with suitable facilities optimizes the outcome. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Any queries? Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Saroj. It was really a brief, compact, and very explanatory presentation. I am sure that audience would have been beneficial to a great extent. So if there is any queries, we'll take up. So while the queries come up, so to summarize what Dr. Saroj has already told, so childhood cancers number are less. It is only 5% of the, around 5% of the total cancer burden. Because of the less number, maybe the government and society at large is not considering it as a big problem. But this 5% really represent a curable disease. Like most of the childhood cancer, as Dr. Saroj has told, are curable, and it is cost effective in all income settings. As he has told that we can use the generic medicines also, and most of the chemotherapeutic agents which are used in childhood cancers are very cost effective. Vincristine, anthracycline, circulating agents, they are not very costly medicines. Like in adults, sometimes you need this monoclonal antibodies, but here with the very generic medicines also we can achieve a very good result. And this childhood cancer cure is very realistic and achievable goal. And there are some myths associated with childhood cancer, like it cannot be cured, and even after it is cured, like child will not be normal, or lifespan will be short. So it's nothing like that. And as Dr. Saroj has told, that Stilson syndrome, or where germline mutations are there, they are only like heritable causes of cancer. Otherwise, most of the cancers are not heritable, childhood cancer, and it's not contagious. And all survivors also doesn't have this fertility problems. And it is like most of the time we think that if a cancer treatment patient has received in the childhood, they will be infertile. So it is also not like that. And with losing hair also is not permanent, and after the chemotherapy is completed, they really can come up. So it is really cost effective, and even if it is 5%, but these children, actually, if we treat them, then we can add on to the productive life years, because these are hardly 5-6 years child. So when they grow up to adulthood, and then later if they like survive for 50, 60, 70 years, so you are adding on to a very productive life years by curing these children in significant way. So one question is that are childhood cancers are more curable than adult cancers, Dr. Saroj?
So definitely the cure rate in childhood cancer is better than adults. Let me summarize why. So the overall outcome is almost 80% in case of childhood cancer, whereas this is something around 40 to 50% in case of adult cancer. The cause is in adults there is associated comorbidities. Many of these patients will have diabetes, many of these patients will have hypertension or associated illness, which all lead to difficulty in management. That is one. Second, the tolerance to chemotherapy in children is far more better than adults. So side effects of chemotherapy are less, and most of these children get adequate dose, the full dose of chemotherapy. Whereas in adult, we need to modify the dose depending upon the toxicity. That is the reason why the children's the outcome of cancer treatment is better.
Thank you, Dr. Saroj. I think that has clarified their doubt. Another question is there any chance of recurrence after recovering from the cancer?
The chance of recovery depends upon what is the disease. Individual disease has
recurrence.
Sorry? Recurrence. So most of the cancer has some degree of recurrence, but majority of the childhood cancer, if they are to recur, the period is roughly around 2 to 3 years. Let me say one by one. Suppose it's a leukemia. Majority of the leukemia, the cure rate is something to a tune of 80-85%. The chance of recurrence is 5 to 10%. The chance of treatment following the recurrence, if the recurrence is delayed, then they can be subsequently treated. If the recurrence is very early and it's a refractory disease, the treatment is very difficult. Similarly, in other tumor, the chance of recurrence is there, but that depends upon what is the type of the tumor, what is the site of tumor, and what is the treatment given.
Thank you, Dr. Saroj. Another question from another viewer, that what are the diagnostic modalities for childhood cancer? How do you diagnose childhood cancer?
So diagnostic modality depend upon what disease we are suspecting. Suppose it's a leukemia, the investigation, the baseline investigation is blood counts, the complete blood count peripheral smear. But few of these cases may not have a blast in the peripheral smear. Then the diagnosis has to be done based upon the bone marrow aspirate and a biopsy. In the aspirate, we need to do what is the morphology, what does it look like? Is it a myeloid origin or a lymphoid origin? Then second is a flow cytometry. That gives us what is the cell of origin. That takes into account what is the cluster differentiation pattern on the cell marker. So taking into some marker, we classify them. Is it the B cell origin, T cell origin, or myeloid origin? So that is the diagnostic modality of leukemia. Similarly, in the lymphoma, the first screening test is an imaging. Then the diagnosis is based on immunohistochemistry. That's taking a biopsy, looking the histopathology, and doing some immunohistochemical marker. Depending upon the marker, they are classified as Hodgkin's, Non-Hodgkin's, again, non-Hodgkin's is subclassified as Burkitt, T lymphoblastic, B lymphoblastic, or the rare subtypes of DLBCL or ALCL. The immunohistochemistry and histopathology will give the answer. The other tumors like kidney tumor, liver tumors, and a sarcoma, we need to do a histopathologic biopsy and immunohistochemistry. That gives the answer.
Thank you, Dr. Saroj. Another question is, can we say that in child, the stem cells are more potent than adults, and that is the reason that children survive high doses of chemo?
So we have already discussed the region of tolerance to chemotherapy are many. The role of stem cell here is not very clearly proven for the tolerance to chemotherapy, but the primary reason why they tolerate chemo better is the lower chance of associated comorbidities.
Say another question, like to discuss cancer pain management in children, and do they need opioids?
Cancer pain management is important. So the pain management can be during the definitive treatment or can be during the palliative treatment. There are some of the malignancy where the intent of treatment is palliative, means it's not an curative, only supportive treatment. So symptomatic management is very important in those cases. So there are various measures, pharmacologic measure and non-pharmacologic measure. In the pharmacology, there are some medicines for that. That starts with narcotic and non-narcotics and subsequently narcotics. During the definitive treatment, patient develop complications like a mucositis, like IV line thrombophlebitis. They do also develop pain sometimes. They do improve with subsequent management of these complications.
Another question is, what is the difference between ALL and CML?
AML and CML, basically in both
ALL and CML.
are leukemia,
Acute lymphoblastic leukemia and chronic myeloid leukemia.
acute lymphoblastic.
Yes.
Okay. So these are acute leukemia and chronic leukemia. Acute leukemia means the duration of symptom is short. Chronic leukemia means duration of symptom is very long. So that is one difference. Second is the origin. So that depends upon the cell of origin, the lymphoid or myeloid. So we give myeloid or lymphoid depending upon that one. That is second. Third is the age group. Majority of the ALL are in the age group of 5 to 15 years in children. CML can present anywhere, but the older patient like 10 year, 12 year, 15 year, the CML is more common. The treatment is different for ALL and CML. The treatment of ALL is intensive phase of chemotherapy for 6 months, then maintenance phase of chemotherapy for 2 years, while the treatment of CML is basically tyrosine kinase inhibitor. These are tablets that has to be taken for a period of indefinite period. Sometimes these are lifelong, sometimes 7 to 8 years or 10 years. And those who do not respond to these medications of TKI, they need transplantations.
Thank you, Dr. Saroj. So as we wait for any other questions to pop up. So just to mention that World Health Organization is also putting a much of effort into childhood cancer treatment. So in 2018, WHO launched a global initiative for childhood cancer with their other partners to achieve at least 60% survival for all children by 2030. As we know that in developed countries, 75 to 80% childhood cancers are curable, but that much we in developing countries we are not able to achieve that much percentage. But the developed countries have already achieved. Our rate is much less than that. So WHO is putting much effort to achieve a global initiative for childhood cancer to achieve at least 60% survival for children by 2030. And the International Childhood Cancer Awareness Day is celebrated every year on 15th February. So basically this is an awareness day, and as Dr. Saroj has mentioned that this September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Uh, I think somebody is asking Wilm steamers. Maybe they want to know what is Wilm steamer.
Sorry, ma'am, can you please repeat?
Somebody is asking just Wilm steamer query. So maybe they want to know what is a Wilm steamer.
Wilms tumor.
Yes.
Okay. So, Wilms tumor is basically a tumor in children arising from the kidney. Very young child, 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year, maximum is roughly around 5 years. They come with asymptomatic abdominal mass. While giving a bath or while the general physician giving vaccination, they detect abdominal mass. So that is the most common symptom. Some of them will have high BP, some of them will have hematuria, that's red color urine. And the diagnosis is based upon a CT scan and a histopathologic biopsy sometimes if it is needed. The treatment is surgery and chemotherapy. Some of the centers will give chemotherapy first, then once the tumor size is reduced, they will do surgery. And some of the centers would prefer going for surgery first, then giving the chemotherapy depending upon the histopathology report. This is a highly curable tumor. Cure rate is to a tune of more than 90% if these are non-metastatic.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saroj. I think there are no other questions. So we can wind up this session on childhood cancers reality checks.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Just you can take this is a good one. So can is HLH regarded as a neoplasm?
HLH is basically not regarded as a neoplasm, but it can be associated with many of the malignancy. HLH can be a trigger, it can be a genetic phenomenon, it can be triggered by some viral infection or some immune-mediated phenomenon, or it can be associated with a malignancy. But HLH itself is not considered as a malignancy.
But for treatment, we need some chemotherapeutic agents to be used. So normally, steroid and cyclosporin and etoposide are used, but basically it's not like malignancy. Is there any genetic relationship with childhood cancer which make them prone to for developing cancer? Another one has asked. I think Dr. Saroj has covered this during his speech, but once again you can reply.
So 90% of the cases, we don't have any known etiology or any genetic change. 5 to 10%, there can be a genetic mutation or an inherited mutation. These are the
I think Dr.
syndrome and the Down syndrome. There are so many syndromes where there is a little bit higher chance of developing childhood malignancy. But 90% of the cases, we don't have any genetic mutation. These are not inherited. 5 to 10%, they can have a mutation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saroj. I think we'll wind up this session. Mr. Assis?
Yes.
Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am. So before we end this, I would like to tell all the participants who are online. So everyone will be receiving a mail shortly in their mailbox with the feedback links and with the certificate download link for the same webinar as well. So nobody needs to worry about how they're going to get the feedback links and the certificate links. Everyone will be receiving it in their mailbox shortly. So before we end this, we'd like to thank Dr. Saroj Prasad Panda sir for the beautiful and informative presentation, Dr. Shonali Mahapatra ma'am for the beautiful moderation, and we would also like to thank our program director, Professor Dr. Ghanshyam Biswas sir, for arranging this beautiful webinar for us. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am. So before we end it, I would like to say everyone that we will be continuing our webinar series next week. Same time we will be coming up again with another interesting topic as well. So till the next time, we would urge everyone to stay safe during this pandemic time, as we all know that the cases in the country are increasing day by day, and we recorded a record of 97,000 cases last day. So we would till the next time would urge everyone to stay safe during this time. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was great to have a webinar with you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you.